So, no, they say history's not there. So then he said, seconds. I had. You obviously got the but then you think it's worse. You know, my whole thing is I don't want to take off. So I'd rather have something like that. Either stop the source of or stop the reception. And I don't want that. So have you never seen I think well, I didn't makes it easy to locate. Well, you know, already bet well, we try to figure out That's right. And it's I do.
Every year I get Dave was there. I think he ends up getting him on lunch.
Party. And I did have a flat. It was the first time I did anything like that. Yeah. I still actually have
Dave says,
that's the one that I saved. You know, I probably, again, pain. No,
they asked me outside.
inside. Yeah. Yeah. No, Jen's leaving tomorrow. It's crazy. Peace. All right, how are you? It's good to be here. Same as it's been for 6.5 years.
Congratulations. I was like,
You're like, I think I
couldn't
know
tell.
that.
This is another one of our sons.
Still kind of still teaching.
I'll see you guys.
Yeah. I know. I think
Yeah, she's never done it.
gosh, you look like somebody I used to know. Hi, Laura.
How are you?
Fine.
Oh,
Come over and see us sometime.
she said the same thing. Let's have less my mom. I love this.
Well, thank you.
Fantastic. I'm working on him. He's a work in progress. Clearly, you're making a difference. We can. It's hard because then you're like, those are always hard. Yeah. Do you have to wear one all day long or you sit down? No, I can sit down. Okay, I mean, it's something like Right. Totally. Yes. Yes, I feel we touched it.
Yeah. So,
Okay, well, that just I choose. That's too hard. That's too much.
and I think wherever.
So now when
Well, it made sense.
they really are.
Yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. Our services are about to begin this afternoon. Before we begin, just a few words. First of all, we invite you to change your seating laterally because you know who are in your pods and in your groups. We don't necessarily. So we would ask you not to change too much back and forth with your seating, but please be comfortable. Second of all, if there are empty seats, please fill in closely. I suspect there will be other people coming today, so we will make whatever happens to happen, we will have happen. If you have a cell phone with you, if you have a mobile phone with you, wanted to remind you, if you don't mind, to please put it on silent. Those electronic sounds and those notifications will just have to wait. First of all, and we also thank you for wearing masks properly over both nose and mouth. We are trying to do social distancing here, even though we're close family, right? And we're greeting people and we're hugging people. So there's a balance. Just be careful. And this afternoon, following this ceremony, there will be burial out at Beit Olamim, which is at the corner of Mineral Point and Westfield Roads, or it's in that northwest corner of that, inside of a place called Sunset Memory Gardens. And we can give you easy directions, or you can look at it on your GPS, whatever is best and most convenient for you. It is a privilege for Cantor Nami and me to officiate this afternoon for you. So we are entering now into a time of meditation, time of gathering, our thoughts, our feelings, here with one another.
121st Psalm is called Shir LaMa'alot, which could mean a song for those who ascend, or a song for those who raise up, who raise each other up. So for we who are here who are raising each other up and supporting one another and helping one another to get through and process this loss, I offer this. Shir LaMa'alot, Esa enai el heharim, me'ayin yavo el רימי אדוני, עושה שמיים וארץ, אל יתן לעמוד רגליך, אל ינום שומרך, הנה לא ינום ולא יישן, שומר ישראל, אדוני שומרך, אדוני צילך, על יד ימינך, יומם השמש לא יככה, וירח בלילה, אדוני ישמורך מכל רע, ישמור את נפשך, אדוני ישמור צאתך ובואך, מעתה ועד עולם, מעתה ועד עולם. A song for those ascending, for those raising each other up. I lift my eyes to the mountains. Where does my help come from? My help, my helper, comes from Adonai, the maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot stumble. Your guardian does not slumber. See, the one who watches over Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. The eternal God is your guardian, your shade at your right hand. By day the sun will not strike you, nor the moon by night. The eternal God will guard you from all harm, guarding your life, guarding your going and your coming, now and forever.
Shalom and good afternoon. Although many of us would feel that today there is not necessarily very little good in this afternoon. The biblical book of Job tells the story of a man who has been afflicted with unimaginable tragedy and hardship. He has lost his family, his children, his possessions, his house. This is a situation brought on by no act or omission of an act on Job's part. His misfortunes were directed from on high, and Job has nothing to do with it. During the course of his mourning, I should say, 3 of his friends come to visit and comfort him. And when they encounter him, they sit on the ground next to him for a full 7 days and 7 nights, because they see the extent of his grief. They don't say a word. His friends remain silent but present. And we understand, both from that silence and that presence, that for Job, the closeness is important, the presence is important, but also that there is not necessarily a meaningful response to his grief. His friends are silent because there is nothing they can say that will relieve Job of his sufferings or explain them to him. In the 40 chapters of the book of Job, there is no adequate response to his pleas for understanding or for his apparent and heavy grief. In that same way, we can say that there is no adequate and immediate response to the sufferings of the family of Ron Walker, or to those who have been privileged to be his friends and acquaintances. All of us together confront this loss. And we too want to know why. We want to understand why a youthful feeling and vibrant life is gone from our midst. And there are no easy answers. On the one hand, we are left with a sense of sadness, for there was likely so much more that we and Ron were hoping to share. On the other hand, we consider also the goodness in Ron's life, the accomplishments, and the values that he bequeaths to us. That is what today is about, and that is what the following weeks and months will also be about. Evaluating, wondering, weighing, integrating those values, those precious things into ourselves. According to the book of Genesis, when God created the world, the Divine One declared it good 10 separate times along the way of creation. In the same way, we can declare a person's life good when they leave a legacy of love, accomplishment, and achievement, because those whom Ron loved, including those in attendance today and those who could not be here today, and I'm talking about also being with us online, include those members of his families who have been indispensable in his achieving his accomplishments. In a way, he stands on your shoulders, as we say in Jewish world. And I'd like to mention who they are. Ron has a large family, but it's important that we know, and that you who may not know all of them have begin now to get to know them and understand where they are. We think about his brother Myers Bonner Walker, his wife Janice K. Wexler, his sons Jeff, Ross, Austin, his children's wives Linda and Lori and Lisa and Amy, along with daughter Aubrey, his stepsons Ari and Josh, along with Jen, his grandchildren John and Isabella and Elijah and Marley and Kemp and Thea, and his faithful dog Moxie. I hope I got all the names right. I probably missed one or two in there, and I apologize. The relationships are wonderful to see in such a large family. We also have to note that he lost a daughter along the way. He lost Elizabeth, who I know is loved by this family. Others close to him include the hospice staff, Tammy Travis, Julie Flynn, for their caring and compassionate support, Doctors Fletcher and Cernich, and Ruth Ashley. All of these loved ones have Ron in their heart, and they are here to find consolation, to remember, to ascertain meaning, and to gain strength from one another at this moment in their lives. Healing will come slowly, and that is a painful truth. But the healing and the consolation that is helped by loved ones is invaluable to us. So all of you who consider yourselves loved ones of Ron's family, and Ron, please gather around one another in these weeks and months to come. Because when it comes to words of consolation, we might search for the right expressions, but sometimes all that any of us can do is simply to be present with Ron's family and friends, and to let them feel our love through our presence. And yet, in remembering Ron, we recall his joy, his integrity, and the love he shared with his family and friends. We also seek to emulate the ways in which he cared for humanity. For in doing so, we learn that we, each in our own way, have already integrated his values into our hearts and minds. And we will find in the months to come and in the years to come that he continues to influence us for good. The spirit that he implants in our hearts will continue to preserve us, even in our grief. Today, however, we gather to remember. And in our silence, there is lamentation. In our tears, there is loneliness. Yet for Ron's love that united us in life and which death cannot sever, for his companionship that you shared along life's pathway and which continues through the tenderness of memory, for the gifts of his heart and mind that brought you all joy and happiness, and that are now precious remembrances. For all these and more, we offer gratitude to God, to the source of life in Ron, and in the humanity that is implanted in each of us. In this time of sadness, we listen to the voices of sacred scripture that bring us the ever-new message of God's nearness. These voices tell us of our kinship with the Creator in light as in darkness, in joy as in sorrow, in life as in death. I first would want to offer words from Psalm 15. Eternal God, who may sojourn in your tent? Who may dwell on your holy mountain? The one who lives without blame, who does what is right, and the one who acknowledges the truth, whose tongue speaks no evil about another, who never does harm to others or reproaches their neighbor, for whom a contemptible person is abhorrent, but who honors and fears the eternal, who stands by their oath even to their detriment, who has never lent money at interest or accepted a bribe against the innocent. The person who acts this way shall never be shaken.
Now, we'll offer the words from the 23rd Psalm in Hebrew and then in English. Adonai roi lo echsar bino desheyar bitzeni al menuchot yenach aleini nafshi yeshover yancheni v'magle tzedek למען שמו גם כי אלך בגיא צל מוות לא אירא רע כי אתה עמדי שבטך ומשענתך המה ינחמוני תערוך לפני שולחן נגד צורריי תשענת בשמן ראשי כוסי רעיה אך טוב בחסד ירדפוני O yemei chayai, yeshavti beveit Adonai, levorech yamim.
God is my shepherd, so I lack nothing. God makes me lie down in green pastures, leads me beside still waters, and restores my soul. God leads me in paths of righteousness for the sake of the divine name. And even when I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. In the presence of my enemies, you have prepared a table of sustenance and victory. You have anointed my head with oil. My gratitude overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the eternal God forever.
And now some words from the beginning of the 3rd chapter of the book of Ecclesiastes. To everything there is a time and a time for every experience under heaven. לכל זמן ועת לכל חפץ תחת השמיים. לכל זמן ועת לכל חפץ תחת השמיים. עת ללדת ועת למות, עת לטעת ועת לעקור נטוע, עת להרוג ועת לרפוא, עת לברות ועת לבנות. לכל זמן ועת לכל חפץ תחת השמיים. לכל זמן ועת לכל חפץ תחת השמיים. A time for birth and a time for death, a time to plant and a time to uproot the planted, a time to kill, a time to heal, a time to tear and a time to build. לכל זמן ועת לכל חפץ תחת
In a few moments, you'll be hearing from myself and from members of Ron's family and acquaintances who will be speaking about Ron. And bear in mind, friends, that each of us knows Ron in a slightly different way. Different time periods, different contexts. And part of today and these days to follow and weeks to follow is that we have the opportunity to recall him to mind. We have the opportunity to learn things about him that we didn't know. Maybe somebody experienced something with Ron that we never understood or we never heard about. And all of that will add to our understanding of Ron, to our appreciation of Ron, and in the future will enable us further to take Ron's values to heart. So for those of you who aren't technically mourning, be sure to share your stories with those who are, and vice versa. Those who are in mourning, express those stories and tell those stories, because it's possible that no one has heard those stories too, as we begin. In reviewing Ron Walker's life, I wonder whether he was a student of the Talmud. Now, as his rabbi for only 16 years, I don't know whether he formally ever enrolled in one of our Torah study or our textual study offerings here. But I know that through his actions and beliefs, that he embodies the spirit of someone in the Talmud named Rabbi Shimon ben Zoma, a teacher among the rabbis of the first century of the Common Era in the land of Israel. Now, Ben Zoma's contribution to the Talmud includes some specific spiritual guidelines that are supposed to allow us to live a life of dignity and humanity. And I think that Ron not only learned these dicta, but that he personifies each one of them. For example, one of them comes to mind as we remember Ron today, as I remember Ron. Ben Zoma rhetorically asks, who is wealthy? And then answers by saying, they who are happy with what they have. Now, Ron, I'm not sure whether Ron was wealthy in dollar terms, but he was certainly wealthy in so many ways. With 3 families, with loving spouses, beautiful and accomplished children, affectionate grandchildren, a successful law practice, a sense of joy in his heart, a share of the Green Bay Packers, unfettered access to conservative all-news television, a pickup truck, and more. I think he thought he had it all. And not that there is more, but he was content with what he had. What more could a person want than these simple things? And the expression of his sense of joy, his broad smile, his infectious laugh, his open arms, his extensive curiosity, all demonstrated, I think, his elation at what life had to offer and what he was able to accomplish. His family and his home were the most important things in his life. He was content at being at home when he wasn't working, perhaps taking time to visit, though, the firing range, taking care of his dogs, who were very important to him, being a homebody. The point is that he demonstrated his love of family and the simple things of life. They were enough for him. He was an excellent cook, I am told, serving up a traditional New Year's Day feast of Brunswick stew, collard greens, black-eyed peas and rice, even some ham, and banana pudding. He also reached out continually to his children. He was their #1 fan, supporting them in their activities, showing interest and desire to be part of their lives. His descendants call him Daddy-O, a term of true endearment for those who cared for him. And even in the last few months of his life, they took care of him, waiting on him, attending to him, listening to every sound or emotion or breath that came from his room, and then attending to his comfort, those who were here, certainly. His children demonstrated their mutual love and support that he showed to them continually, and they all brought forward the importance of the closeness of family. Rabbi Ben Zoma, again, also asked this question rhetorically, who is wise? And he answers, the one who learns from everyone. So in response to that first century rabbi, I think that Ron was both a learner and a teacher. From his North Carolina roots, he learned from his family and his nation that service to his country was one of the most important values he could fulfill. And so in the late 1960s, he served as a helicopter scout on daily missions in Vietnam with the U.S. Army's 101st Airborne Division. During this time of military service, he inculcated the value of service, though, even at peacetime, as one of his important avocational pastimes was serving as a volunteer firefighter in the village of Cobb, Wisconsin. His military service also supported his curiosity about firearms, and his enthusiasm for this realm led him to mentor others about firearm use and firearm safety. He even once trained members of the Israel Defense Forces who had come to this country to learn about the use of certain handguns and firearms. He was a federal firearms marshal, and he even invented a way to concentrate shotgun discharge for better accuracy, and one would think safety as well. Ron was a student of history, reading voraciously about warfare in general and the American war between the states. I understand his attentions were captured, though, also by Judah Benjamin, a senator, a U.S. senator from the state of Louisiana in the mid-19th century, the son of Sephardic Jewish parents, and he himself, Judah Benjamin, was a significant figure who held a number of different cabinet ranks in the Confederacy. The nature of Ron's service to others also included, during his time as an attorney in Iowa County, the act of helping his clients through many a difficult time, and being willing to be paid in bartered goods, or sometimes not at all. He was especially generous to those who could not afford legal services, from members of the Latinx and Sikh community and many others who had legal issues. In Ron's mind, the word service was not simply a vague or general term, but needed to represent substantial service, substantial contact, substantial benefit to the person receiving that service. He believed he needed to make a difference. I was told that he called his practice a pig and chicken practice, but that was probably just a simple way of saying that he was there for the common person. He was there for everybody who needed him. Ron demonstrated also an entrepreneurial spirit, encouraging many to start new business ventures and try out new ideas. But I also understand that Ron was playful, and Ron was always optimistic. He was certainly insistent, as anyone could be, that things align with his vision. He wanted things a certain way, but he was always someone who felt that complaining overly much about things was never a helpful posture. So I have to say that along with the rabbi of the first century, I would share with you the wisdom that he followed, I think, of one of Ron's favorite contemporary characters in today's culture. So I found among the wit and wisdom of SpongeBob, whom I'm told Ron enjoyed. When things were going poorly for Ron, SpongeBob once actually said, "I'll have you know that I stubbed my toe last week and cried for only 20 minutes. So for Ron, what that really means is that he knows that things were never going to be half as bad as what others might expect them to be. Ron was an optimist. Ron was able to take difficult situations and slough them off and to say, another time, I can't deal with being sad right now. I have other things I need to do. So I was told of an occasion sometime in the last 10 to 15 years of his life when at the same time that Janice was undergoing some medical difficulties and was staying at her mom's house, that Ron fell down a flight of stairs and broke both his arms. Now, Ron's physicians insisted that he go to a rehab facility, which I'm told he wisely did, but his strong desire was just to come home and recuperate there. He almost got his way. But more than that, he did not want anyone to take pity on him or to attend to him in extraordinary ways. He tried to downplay the extent of his injuries. He was simply someone who could rise from a mishap like that and continue on. Now, we know, and certainly with Ron's leukemia, it may have been confirmed, that one is not always able to overcome one's difficulties because fatal illness can come upon someone and bring heartbreak and misfortune relatively quickly. Many in this room likely know that in connection with COVID. This reality is what makes Ron's passing a moment of tragedy and sadness, and we acknowledge that. But it might also underscore Ron's optimistic approach to life because how he lived every day belies the difficulty that encountered him or that he encountered. He just said, you know what, that difficulty is there, but I'm not going to attend to it very much. I'm going to try and do the things that I know will make me happy and that I know will make the people around me happy. I sense that Ron believed in seizing the special moments in life and never squandering them, knowing that those moments will be few and short-lived. The capricious nature of life can surely have and give us profound sadness and difficulty, but we know that they can also contain great heights and wonderful pleasures. And I think it is surely for those latter kind of moments that we all must strive to live. And that is something that Ron teaches us. That is why he is a teacher as well as a learner. As we remember Ron, I know that you, members of his family, will be there for one another as you traverse the broad set of emotions that will envelop you in the coming weeks and months. And that's the beauty of family. That is the wealth that you will all share with one another. The wealth that made Ron Walker happy. That's the wealth that he was, I think, so blessed with. The wealth of family, the wealth of community, the wealth of joy, and the wealth of who he was and being satisfied with who he was inside. We will all remember Ron with great love and great affection and great spirit. There are others who know Ron much better than I, and so I would now like to invite to the bima Ross Walker, Ron's son, to share some thoughts with us.
First of all, thank you. Thank each and every one of you for coming. It means the world to us. I wish I would have written something down. So my dad was a really complex figure. He meant a lot of things to a lot of different people. But to me and to my brothers and sisters, he was daddy. He was always our daddy. And he taught us two things that I will just share with you today and hope you keep it in mind because it really describes his spirit. One, family is everything. You love your family no matter what, unconditionally, no matter what they do, you are there to support them. If they do you wrong, you accept their apologies and you continue forward because family is the most important thing. And number two, take care of number one. That's his number one advice that he gave to all of his kids and everybody that he thought was important. Take care of yourself. You are going to be your very best advocate, and nobody can do it as well as you can. So family's everything, and take care of number one. I love you, Daddy.
I'd like to ask now Ron's former law partner, Paul Angel, to come and offer some observations too.
Good afternoon. Janice, thank you for asking me to speak to my memories of Ron as a friend, colleague, business partner in the time we spent together. Ron and I had quite a bit in common growing up. He grew up in a town about the same size as I did. He grew up in Durham, North Carolina. I grew up in Racine. We both went to college. I was in the Army. He was in the Army. He served in Vietnam. He was certainly one of our heroes there. I always admired that. And I think I want to talk a little bit how we met. Ron and I both started with the same attorney in Dodgeville, small town just west of here for those who are not from here. Iowa County is maybe 20,000 people, one judge. We have a courthouse. So Ron started with a small firm after graduation from law school. Ron graduated in 1979, I think, with you, Janice, from the UW Law School. And then after that, he went to work for American Family as a defense attorney. And it was at that point, I think, he learned all the legal tricks for defending claims of various types. But at some point, I'm not exactly sure when, maybe after 2 years, I think Ron decided he wanted something a little more to do with people rather than with business and rather than with a big company. So Ron came out to Dodgeville, started working for Paul Morrow, who I started with. Ron worked for him for maybe a year or two. And I started having some cases with Ron, and I liked Ron. Ron was excellent in the courtroom. He was cordial. He was fun to talk to after court. He just was a very smart attorney. I have two sons that work with me, Tim Angel and Matt Angel, and I talked to Tim yesterday about his memory of Ron. It was somewhat amusing because I was out dining with my son. Tim was probably 8 or 10 years old at the time. Tim said that Ron was at Hardee's. That was our fine dining at that point. Ron was at Hardee's, and we started talking. And I didn't remember this, but Tim said we started talking, Ron and I, about working together. And I know it had to start someplace, but I was alone. I had my own firm. I was doing general practice. So it wasn't long after that Ron left where he was at, and we joined up and started working together. Now, Ron, during his almost 40-year career as a lawyer, started out doing almost everything. We were a small-town practice. We did wills, we did family cases, we did business, we did everything. But it wasn't long before Ron, I think, gravitated to his true calling, which was helping people. Some people call, there's maybe two halves to the legal business, happy law, and then be the tougher, harder part, which is really helping people who are troubled and that need help. And that's what Ron gravitated toward. He wasn't looking for the easy work as a lawyer. He did the hard stuff. The hard stuff being people that have been injured, people hurt, sometimes at work, just about any way. So Ron became truly expert at personal injury, workers' compensation, and Social Security. Actually, the last 10 years, Ron started actually mentoring my son, Tim Angel. They worked together a great deal in workers' compensation cases. And I know I'm not trying to talk too much about work, but the fact is that most of us spend a third of our lives working. And what are people like at work as opposed to at home? What I remember about Ron is that he would work sometimes very odd hours because he would do things with his family. He would, if there was something going on in the morning at school or in the afternoon after work, Ron would be there. Ron would leave work. I think Ron loved the flexibility of being his own boss and choosing his own hours and doing what he thought was best for his family. So my memory of Ron is that his family was number one. They came first. Ron did everything he could to mentor his children. I kind of remember occasionally, I know Jeff would come in sometimes from school, come up and see his dad. I'd talk a little bit with Jeff. I think Beth did the same thing because they were in school in Dodgeville. Very, very close to his children. The other thing I remember about Ron is he started something we didn't do. It probably wasn't done that often, but we started an annual Christmas party. All the families got together. We'd celebrate the end of the year. Mom and Dad were there. We had a great time. The other thing, he was way ahead of his time in terms of his technology. Ron started use of computers and being a good business person very early. He started doing his own work, which was unusual at the time. Just a tremendous lawyer. He made me a better person in what I did. We took some very difficult cases. We traveled a lot together. We've been to Florida and Oklahoma and Texas and other places on our work. And he was delightful. He was also fearless. Even though, for the most part, we'd be opposed by large firms, and we were two lawyers in a small town, Ron wasn't afraid of anybody or anything. He was smarter than they were, too. I think people underestimated Ron because, well, he was in a small town, a small firm, but he was a truly remarkable lawyer. He was gifted in what he did. He made me better. He made those around him better. The other thing I want to say is that when people came to see him, he was very down to earth, probably like you remember your dad. He was easy to talk to. People would come and see him, and he was just very normal. He didn't look or act like a lawyer, which is, I think, the true compliment for anyone that's serving and helping people. Truly remarkable. He was great to my family and to my kids. Matt, my mother's son Matt, was talking to Ron at a real estate closing recently, and the topic came up about military service, and Ron was almost dismissive of it, but I think Matt pressed him a little bit, and he then told a couple of the people at the closing about his experience. He was also a hero. I always admired that about Ron. So I had some remarks that were prepared, but I guess what I would say is that the day-to-day, Ron was a remarkable person. People loved Ron. His clients were loyal. He was loyal to them. He worked very hard, and he was the smartest lawyer I've ever met. Really smart. And he was also compassionate and generous with his time. Thank you, Janice, for letting me speak about Ron.
Thank you. Thank you.
I now would like to invite Margot Stewart, who will be speaking on behalf of Aubrey Walker.
I'm humbled and honored deeply today to read Aubrey's words. One thing my dad would tell me since as far back as I can remember is that nobody will ever love you like your dad does. He was 100% right. My dad has always been my #1 fan, biggest supporter, the absolute best hype man, biggest encourager, and most of all, my hero. He taught me that nothing is more important than family and to take care of #1. I will miss basically everything about my dad, but I will especially miss his dad jokes, even when it was just us laughing. His amazing pep talks that we had on a regular basis, his big hugs, and loud ear kisses. Most of all, I will miss his unconditional love. My dad's love was really unlike any other, and I'm absolutely positive that he is right. I will never have another love like his. I am so lucky to have had 32 years with my dad, and I will forever cherish all of our memories.
And finally, I'd like to invite Ari Davidson, one of Ron's stepsons, to come forward.
This spring would have marked knowing Ron for exactly 18 years, which is half of my life. The significance of this number does not go unnoticed. The symbolic meaning of 18 in Judaism can mean life, known as Chai. Chai is composed of the 8th letter of the Hebrew alphabet, Chet, and the 10th letter, Yud. And for those who struggle with math, 8 plus 10 equals 18. Though Ron's life was taken from us far too soon, we now live out our lives with Ron in our hearts and minds. The past week, we held a celebration of life for Ron. We laughed, we cried, we remembered. Collective words were spoken, which only affirmed what individual hearts already knew. Ron was a gentle soul, full of love and warmth, and went out of his way to help those in need. Whether you were family or friend, you could not help but become wrapped in Ron's loving embrace. Figuratively and literally, because we all know respecting personal space was not a strength of his, and he was going to give you a hug no matter what. Nothing meant more to Ron than family. His greatest joy was the success and well-being of his kids. He often spoke fondly of his joint business adventures with Jeff and Beth. He cherished time with his kids and grandchildren at the cabin in Wisconsin or ranch in Oklahoma. Ron was our biggest fan. Whether it be baseball, softball, or ultimate frisbee, Ron was there to cheer us on. As a veteran, Ron took great pride in his son Austin joining the Air Force and later carrying on the Walker tradition of being a firefighter. He glowed with pride when speaking about Aubrey following her dreams and becoming a successful entrepreneur. And just before he passed, he found out about Ross's recent promotion and could not have been more proud. As a husband, Ron truly lived the Jewish phrase, "I am my beloved, and my beloved is mine." He also lived by the words, "What's mine is yours, and what's yours is yours." Hence my mother's extensive jewelry collection. As I shared last week, one of the best decisions my mom ever made was marrying Ron. Anyone who knows them could see and feel how much Ron loved my mother, which made it that much easier as an 18-year-old who thought he knew everything to let this man be a part of our lives. Josh and I instantly became his kids, my uncle his brother, and my grandma Lo his mom. For these reasons and more, I knew my mom was in good hands. At one point in Ron's life, he had to grapple and struggle with his ideas about what love is and who it could be between. He was able to learn and grow, opening his heart to all. In a world that has become so divisive, Ron has taught us all and continues to teach us what unconditional love looks like. This lesson, along with how to have a successful relationship in 2 words, yes, dear, will stay with us forever. I am forever grateful for the time I spent with Ron and the impression he has made in my life. In our family, we like to call step-parents bonus parents, and this is exactly what Ron was. Ross, Aubrey, Austin, and Jeff, I am so thankful to call you family. May we honor Ron's life by loving fiercely and giving graciously, and may his memory be a blessing.
For those with us today, either here in the sanctuary or online, or watching at a later date, some may feel, I don't know, some embarrassment or some discomfort, maybe with some of the laughter that you hear. And I think it is characteristic of Jewish observances of this type that we remember the good times, even though we are suffering through difficulty, when the loss is directly before us. And yet, that's what life, well, we do that because that is what life is about. Life is taking all of those emotions, balancing them, experiencing them when they confront us. And that's what makes life really good, I think. But I'd like to invite us now to spend a few moments in quiet meditation as we each imagine a moment that we had with Ron. There may be something in your far memory or something far more recent, but take that memory, treasure it, remember it, watch it in your mind, and enable yourself to treasure the values of Ron that come through that memory. Pause for a few moments of quiet prayer.
I was told that Ron was a big bluegrass fan. Unfortunately, I couldn't find a bluegrass song that felt right for this moment, but I hope that this will do. Well, the sun is surely sinking down, and the moon is slowly rising. This old world still keeps spinning round. I still love you. So close your eyes. You can close your eyes. It's all right. And I don't know no love song, and I can't sing the blues anymore. But I can sing this song. You can sing this song when I'm gone. It won't be long before another day. We're gonna have a good time, and no one's gonna take that time away. You can stay as long as you like, so close your eyes. You can close your eyes, it's all right. I don't know no love song, and I can't sing the blues anymore. But I can sing this song. You can sing this song when I'm gone. But I can sing this song. You can sing this song when I'm gone.
We invite the community to rise for El Malei Rachamim, first in Hebrew and then in English.
El Malei Rachamim, Shochein Bameromim, Hamitzei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanefei HaShechina, Im Kedoshim Uteorim, Kezohar Arakia Mazhirim, Et Nishmat Ron Walker, Shehalach Leolamo, Baal Harachamim, Yasireu Beseter Kenafav Leolamim, Veitzror Bitzror HaChaim Et Nishmato, Adonai Hu Nachalato, Veyanuach B'Shalom Al Mishkavo V'nomar Amen.
Eternal God, full of compassion, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence along with all the righteous and holy ones to Ron Walker, our loved one who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let him find refuge forever in the shadow of your wings, and let his soul be bound up in the bonds of everlasting life. God is his inheritance. May he rest in peace. And we all say, Amen.
Amen.
Please be seated. It's now just a few moments past 2 o'clock. We will reconvene at 2:30 out at Beit Olamim Cemetery. Again, it's northwest from the corner of Westfield and Mineral Point Road. If you go out Mineral Point Road, you'll make a right turn onto Westfield, which is north, and then you'll make a left turn into the cemetery, which would likely be the first driveway that you'll come to when you enter the cemetery. If you are there before other people, please pull in as far as you can. The road should be plowed in order for you to get out, continue in that same direction. But pull in so that other people arriving after you have ample place to park there in the cemetery as well. We look forward to seeing you out there, and the service will continue at that time. Thank you.